Today we have one of my good friends, mentor, the guy who reached out to me and gave me my first opportunity.
Sorry, I did that to you. In the coaching.
I wasn't going to say that, but you did. Mike Popio, and we when Ron and I first started even talking about this, one of the first things we talked about was having you on, and we were just trying to figure out a lot of the technical side, just seeing if there was any interest and so on. And by the time that we kind of got to that point, you were in season again. And how many years?
Too many. 39, I think. 39. 40, somewhere around there.
Wow.
I don't want to count too much.
Okay.
Counting like 1980 was a freshman job at Chaney.
Yeah.
But I was helping out at Volney before that. And,
okay.
Volunteering while I was in college. So I don't really count those. But as of like 1980, that was that freshman year. That ninth grade team.
And you were one of the people that we said, hey, you know what, we gotta talk to Pope. And so here we are. And I think for me it's we'll kind of get into that, but let's just kind of start about maybe a little bit about your family background, where you grew up, that type of thing, and your first exposure to Chaney and Chaney football.
Before I even answer that, all kidding aside about getting you into coaching, it's a good thing.
Yeah, no, definitely.
It's a
right.
good thing.
Yeah, for
even
sure.
the bumps that may go with it,
yes.
What it teaches you to deal with. Kids and parents included help you
absolutely
in life down the road.
Absolutely.
And some are way better experiences than others are, obviously. But,
right.
If you remember back, all our administrators were ex-coaches at that time when you were in school, and because they were good disciplinarians and were able to organize and so on. So, no, I don't apologize for getting you into the other decisions are all yours.
Yeah, right, exactly.
No, but all right, go back to what was your question again? I just want to
just talk a little bit about your upbringing and your first exposure to Chaney and kind of hit on that.
Well, upbringing as a youth, my dad was not a very athletic person. With what I wanted to do, you did, but I was lucky to be friends with a lot of guys in the neighborhood that were athletic. Baseball, football, we were always playing, and ride our bikes up to watch Chaney practice. Because I lived right on Bella Vista there, and you used to be able to cut up, overlook Chaney Circle, and go through the back gate. There actually used to be down at the bottom of the track, I think, there to get to practice field. And, go watch practice. So that's kind of got you involved, and then played for West Junior High at that time, and that was a fun experience with a good group of guys. Gary De Niro, God rest his soul, just passed. Was on that group with me, and just it was a good experience, and we just wanted to stay together with those guys, and you saw how things were going at Chaney and how you looked up to those guys that were playing then. And you wanted to be involved with it, and went to high school, and no ninth grade then, so West was 7th, 8th, and 9th, and Volney was 7th, 8th, and 9th, so you had two really good feeder programs feeding Chaney at that time, and got involved and just had a great experience playing at Chaney with a lot of kids. We were 75 to 80 on the football team, then my sophomore, junior, and senior year.
Was Volney's, did they have football then?
Yep, that was still a big rivalry. And
so but it must have just started up then, because when I was in ninth grade, there was no Volney. I mean, there was no Volney football.
Yeah, I don't know exactly when that had started, because I'm trying to think. It's graduates, 75, 74, 73 football season at Chaney. So it would have been like 72, my ninth grade year.
So it must have
72,
started
71, 70, right around there.
Yeah.
So, and we don't have to go down this road, but I never thought about that. You had West and Volney, and you're saying Volney didn't have a football team. What if you went there? Did you play football, or you couldn't, or how did that work?
No, you didn't. You actually, and I think we touched on this one time, but I'm just telling you from my experience, when I was a ninth grader, which would have been 1967.
Okay.
67, yeah. 66, 67. the ninth graders that came from St. Christine's or St. Brendan's or wherever, or Holy Name, and went to Volney, they became, and were involved in football, they became ball boys. They were like managers.
So they never played?
Not in ninth grade.
Oh, wow.
They didn't have football.
Oh.
Was there any athletics they could
Like
Volney at that time at all?
Well,
See, this is news to me. I didn't know. I thought they both just had 7th, 8th, 9th grade and played.
I want to say they did. They had basketball because like Brunetti, Don Brunetti, and Jimmy Cal, they didn't play ninth grade football.
I did not know that.
They went to Volney. They were in the Volney area.
Yeah.
They went to Volney and they didn't play, and they became, like I said, Red would bring them to the games, and they'd be ball boys, manager type guys.
That's kind of, well, yeah. I mean, and they were behind. Even when I played, like, we were kind of the better of the two at that time. But they were starting to catch up because they were getting some better athletes and playing. But, West had just been playing. I mean, you just had it there for a while.
Yeah.
Now, you were expected to win if you were at West at that point, if I recall, and then I don't know that if we lost them ever during my 3 years there.
Okay.
But they made it a tougher game. It was still the last game, big rivalry. You'd play behind West or play behind Volney. That's where you played their home games.
Volney had shortened field or something.
Oh, the one end zone was only like 9 yards or 8.5 yards. And if
woods,
you ran a fade, which we didn't do back then, but you would actually fall back, go down the hill. Like the back corner went downhill into like the woods in the parking lot. But yeah, that was the kind of starting, and just had great guys and my great experience with the guys on the team, and and we had talked last night briefly about the coaches we had. We're good coaches. When you look back on the things that Matey, Lutzy, Kopp, Drewstrak, all went through and their experience they had, you didn't realize it then. They just look like older guys. But John went on for a long coaching career that stayed with that, and Ed's background with Bobby, he had brought a lot of knowledge to the game and things that kind of, by the time Cal was a senior, we really evolved as an offense, straight two platoon. It was pretty neat, and that's what kind of got me into it. Bob Garkar was probably the biggest influence on me and all that. Mike Butch at West and Bob at Chaney, because he was also my baseball coach there, and I played offensive line, defensive line. He coached both sides of that ball and of the ball, and that's who I kind of bonded with, and I liked Bob. Bob was a straight shooter, great guy.
And Mike Butch was the head coach at West at the time.
No, he was the AD there. Magni and
Ernie Zalma.
Zalma was there, and then I think my last year was the shop guy had a mustache. I can't remember.
Mr. Knoll.
No, not Knoll. No, but I remember that wasn't Knoll. I can't remember. Then he actually went to Poland, I think, or somewhere to teach. But and Ugrin was there.
Vic Ugrin.
Vic Ugrin, I think, was the head coach of my last year. I think.
Okay.
Was he at Volney? Though I'm trying to remember. Was he there when I coached at Volney, or was he at West? The years run together.
Yeah, right.
But that's what kind of got me. I enjoyed this game. I mean, because it wasn't like I was this player getting a lot of reps, but I enjoyed the camaraderie of players, and there were good players, and you watch a lot of good experiences. It was a good experience just seeing the success we had, and I said, this is pretty cool. And Mike Butch was the influence, so I wanted to go into physical education. I says, what a great gig this is. You love athletics and you love being around sports, and you get to come to school and, that's what you teach, so that kind of got me wanting to get an education and find a way to coach. And football and baseball were the easiest fits for me. And I just started volunteering. Westside Bears, actually, with Milan Zordich, had me and Bubba Brown helped out with, volunteered over there when Michael was playing for the West Side Bears, and then I helped out at Volney for a couple of years, and then the freshman job opened at Chaney, and kind of first paid coaching job, I should say, was at that time.
And that was what year, Mike?
1980.
That was 80. Okay, I was an assistant then.
Mark Calcagney was like the Q. We were like
Okay.
5-3-1 that year.
Yeah, okay.
I was helping with, like, I was involved with the varsity, but just doing the freshman. I think that was Cal. Yeah, Mark, that era.
And then from there you went to Ursuline?
Then I went, because I was doing the 9th grade, and a big influence on, and we had mentioned this, was Joe Lutz, too. I admired how Joe ran the defense, how organized he was, how even-keeled he was for the most part, too.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, I'd done that 9th grade job, and the season was over, and we kind of packed our gear up, and, I was still going to YSU at that point. I was like a senior, going to play baseball in the spring, and, God knows we didn't have fall ball with Dom or anything like that, but so that's why I was able to coach. And I didn't hear anything. I said, I kind of like this. I'd like to move up the ladder a little bit, and I didn't hear from Med on anything, so I didn't know what my direction was going to be, whether I was going to be back in 9th grade or got a chance to move up to varsity, because I know he was looking for a few guys at that point. And Dick Engel was looking for a coach, and actually him and Lutz were pretty good friends.
Yeah.
And he says, well, they got this 9th grade guy, kid that played for me, played for us at Chaney, that I know he's looking to use this as a profession, get in it, and that's when I interviewed with Dick. I really didn't know Dick Engel, but Joe Lutz told him, give him a call and see if he, I sat down in Hubbard and his back porch, and he says, I'll get you coaching varsity. You're going to be the 9th grade guy, but you're going to be a varsity position coach, and you're at every game, and you're, and I expect you to be at meetings. So that was giving me what I wanted as far as expanding, learning the game.
I interviewed with Dick at Blake's bar.
That sounds about right.
When he was at Sharon Kennedy. Yeah.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah. When we had him on. I was working at U.S. Steel and met him up at Blake's.
And it was kind of like, it sounds like a good opportunity for me. And they had a full contract for me. And then, ironically, I get the call the day before doubles from Timmy O'Malley. Wanted, hey, we need, somebody must have bailed that was going to coach, or he had whatever. And there was a varsity opening for Chaney. And I says,
When I was the coach?
No, you were assistant. That was 81.
Oh,
right
okay.
then.
Okay, yeah.
And I says, I can't bail on this guy. I made a commitment to go to Ursuline now. I says, I didn't know that there was going to be this opening. And I think that probably didn't sit real well, maybe immediately with all the parties concerned. But
Sure. I remember.
But it was the day before, and Timmy called me to see if I wanted to coach, and
Tommy Olszewski was our quarterback then.
It may have been,
brother.
Yeah. When I
year,
remember
right after Mark.
When you were at Ursuline, I remember that Tommy was, and we lost a real close game at YSU.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that kind of started the move to Ursuline. I was there from 81 to 88. And then 89, fall of 88 was with you. 81 to 88. Yeah, the fall of 88.
I think the second year.
Yeah, 89 was, 88 was my first year with you. Second year was 89, and we started to get it going.
Yeah.
We still were one of those close but no cigar game days, years. And that's kind of like everywhere. We had mentioned at Ursuline, that was the only one that went there, and they were good. But not as good as they should have been. Like, that was a really good team. They went 6-4, and they should have been 8-2, 9-1. And it just didn't pan out that way. But probably 4 to 6 D1 kids on that team. Should have been better, but not a great chemistry. But you kind of have to take your lumps. I think how programs are built. You got to get beat up a little bit until you get a little tougher.
Well, and that's I think what we've talked about so much on this is, and you were really part of that early on, was how difficult yet so close you guys were in those 3-4 early years to turning the corner, and how difficult that schedule was, going down to Steubenville a couple times, losing by a field goal, nip-tuck games.
Just so your kids will come to practice again the next week. We're going to still be out there till dark 30, and
Dark 30, yeah.
and and we're going to keep beating the drum here,
Yeah.
getting after it, and even though they're coming up short, but you had to tell them, honest, this is going to work. This is going to work. You're going to be a tougher kid for it. I don't know if Paul Lamongian would agree with double running twice a day and stuff like that we put them through. Practice in the morning and meet behind Volney in the afternoon and do a repeat.
When did you do
I'm
that?
guessing that's not.
Is that your first and second year? And we backed off. We said we can't do this.
Yeah, and we talked about that as far as program was concerned. I mean, it
was all volunteer now, remember?
Oh, yeah.
It was all volunteer.
I
The
didn't
kids
know
really
that.
wanted to do all that.
I don't think anybody knew that.
Yeah, it was all volunteer.
Voluntarily mandatory, I think, was the quote.
Voluntary,
That's
but
true.
we're all going to
Yeah.
be here and count heads.
Right, right. But I mean, if you're going to change culture, if you're going to
Yeah.
make a Herculean change, it's going to take a Herculean effort.
Yeah.
Certainly.
You got to do things that other people haven't done
Yeah.
because what they were doing wasn't working.
Yeah.
I mean,
And then, so how did you end up going from Ursuline to Chaney?
well, when I was there in 80 with that freshman group, I was mainly doing the defense. I had Mark Del Signor was doing the offense
Sure.
for me. That was one of the assistants I had, and he would run the offense. I was a defense, so I worked with Ron, picked his brain, to what we were doing and what so we were both on the same page with the younger guys, and I was hoping that down the road he would get that job whenever Ed decided to get out, and I remember I'd love to come back and work with you if there's an opening when that does occur, when Ed went to Ursuline, so I had that ties, and then he got the job, and then what happened was I was kind of looking to make a move teaching wise, and I was teaching at Princeton Junior High at that time. And when I went to Ursuline, I was doing parochial actually and making at St. Brendan's about $8,200 a year or something. I think I was making, then I got finally hired in the city, but I was teaching remedial reading at Princeton. Okay, actually that's where I met my wife, at the circle of life that
So it
we
works
taught
out,
together at the end.
right?
Yeah, so there was a reason for that. But then and I was teaching reading, and I was a phys ed major, and I wanted to get back in phys ed, and then circumstances had opened up the elementary PE job at West, and Ron says, hey, Julian was on the board at that point, and I can get you in as coach and teach, but you got to coach, it's tier 2, and I says, I'm in, so the phys ed opening occurred there, and that's got me back on the West side.
How did you, and I wonder this too for me, how did you end up at West, like with the union piece? Because, I never bit into a position, but I was there for a couple years, which was great.
I just, that was where the opening was at.
And that's where they put you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it helps when you got some board members that you can discuss this with, and then they blow in the supers there, and
we got a chance to get a coach come in here, teach and coach.
Sure. No, I mean, I know when I got hired, it was some kind of like somebody had left, they filled a spot late, so I got in, and then the second year I got to stay, and it's,
I think the coaching part had a lot to do because it was hard
For
getting
sure.
coaches. So
Yeah.
you could have had somebody just transfer within, but maybe they weren't going to coach. But we have a chance to get a guy that's going to do I was going to do 2 sports,
Yeah.
and come in and do.
and
phys
right in the
ed.
neighborhood, and we ended up having,
And being an alumni, a city graduate, and
Yeah.
a Chaney graduate.
yeah. So you end up coming back with Ron, and then the first year you were. So I didn't realize you were the defensive coordinator at Ursuline. And
my last 2 years.
Yeah, and then came over to Chaney, and then '89, I think Dobe left. You guys were maybe splitting it in '88, '89. You kind of take over, put your stamp on it, and run from
Well,
there.
I remember getting in Ron's basement. I said, okay, kind of like, here's a chalk. And talk to me about the 40, you know. Because you were running a version of 4-3 stuff, I think, at the end. Because you were a straight odd front person, you know, a 50 guy.
Right.
But I think you were more 4-3-ish, I think, the second half of the year. Or you were maybe multiple.
Yeah, right. It wasn't predominantly 4-3. We were still 50 rooted in.
As everything roots comes from the 50. If we remember.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Start kicking fronts and
we
dropping
we
ends.
had this discussion
It's a
the
4.
other-
Everything evolves
other
from
week,
the odd front.
You know, it's just a matter of not covering the center.
Yeah.
Right.
But yeah, and being in double eagle. Anyway, yeah, the 4-3 was kind of change up go to, and actually, I remember we actually put in against East when they had I want to say Hopkins.
Could have been. Darnell Bracey.
No,
Hopkins, that year? No?
this is when I was an assistant. When I started dabbling in the 40, it was when I don't think it was, and I think I might have said this a couple weeks ago that it was J.C. Penney, but I don't think it was. I think it was one. They had a real good stud back, and we put in 4-4.
Yeah.
Stack.
Yeah.
And it was
Just
just
gamed them.
Bring an 8 and fill in every gap.
Exactly.
Yeah. You didn't know whether the end's in or out.
It was
the stack backers out or in.
We were ending 88 gap.
Right.
After the dust settled,
Right.
because they had the leeway to tap and go in out.
Yeah.
Right.
And that was the first exposure to the 40, and we really shut them down. I mean, and it was just because they never saw anything like that, and they didn't know who to block. And the back, we ended up winning the game. But anyway, that was the first exposure.
So when I came, it wasn't like it was totally he hadn't run the 4.
Yeah.
Right.
The even front, and it just kind of here's what I learned from it. And 'cause when I went to Ursuline, Bert Dockery was the defense coordinator. They were running a 50.
Mm-hmm.
So I was coaching the nosemen when I was there, and so those for a couple years. And Bart got out, and that's when Jeff took over. But when Jeff took over, Dick wanted him to run the 4. I don't know. Maybe that was what he was at Kennedy. I don't know what made him be a 40 guy. I'm telling you, it was because Mooney ran it at the time, and we're going to beat him at their own game type thing.
Probably.
Yeah. And so we went to the 4, and that Jeff was a defensive coordinator then, and I was coaching inside backers, and I went to Ron Stoops Sr. I says, teach me the 40. Okay, that was the best person to go to.
Sure.
And as a position player, we're going to run a 4-4, tough on the outside, like had 7s and 9s on your tight end, you know.
That was the unique part of that,
Yeah.
is the 40 tough.
You know, and just beat your tight end up. And because you only have 3 wideouts to worry about sometimes. 2 wideouts and a tight end, you know, or double tights and a flanker. So you were all ganged up, had 8 guys in the box. You had a good corner, goes to the split, the flanker side, and, you know.
Yeah, and I was coaching outside linebackers when we made that transition, and you know you're in and out in the tight end. You know, I mean, you're shade out and you got your.
He ain't reaching me. He ain't gonna reach me. So my outside's free, and I'm gonna be I'm gonna set the edge all the time, and I ain't down blocking on your 7. You know what I mean?
We were actually teaching outside linebacker play, putting our kids' heels on a curb so they couldn't take a false step backwards.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So everything was, downhill run.
Yeah, curving outside the shot would bring them down to the yeah.
Snap the ball and they couldn't take that false step
Yeah,
backwards.
yeah.
Everything was already like 1-2 forward.
Right.
But we've evolved. We started as a tough 40, and then we said, okay, how about we're getting a little trouble getting under this slant and getting the throw window here. How about if we go 2x2 off of them, still stay in a 7 with our tight end, our DN, and we're still reading tight end and near back in that triangle, and you get a down block, you are coming as if you were on the line of scrimmage, and if you were getting a setup or hi hat look, but our recognition steps then were like 1-2 open, stick the outside foot, and get downhill.
Yeah.
So you started to get off the ball because the offense started to get a little wider, and you needed to defend a little bit more.
I know we don't want to get too
we're getting clinical now.
Too clinical here,
right.
Exactly. But what you're doing is you're bringing, in essence, that strong safety, that monster, if
Right.
you would, and you're putting them on the line of scrimmage in a blitz alignment. And it's just an easier position, taking some steam out of the tight end and then taking on toss or playing option, which were the flavors of the day. It just made a lot of sense.
That was hard finding that guy, too, that could be a flat player and then play like a DN on the line of scrimmage, you know what I mean? So you started getting a little bit more athletic kids, a kid that wasn't didn't have the greatest hips or great speed to be a corner or a safety for you, and so you got him a little closer to the line of scrimmage. Or he was just that nosy kid, so you make him an outside linebacker.
Right.
Yeah, and it evolved to where, like, strong safety, weak safety. I just, you would ask, when I got the boardroom, what did I do? Well, I started taking, like, one of our defensive backs that just wasn't going to play, and you'd use him maybe in a nickel, made him the weak safety, and then made the other one the strong safety, and we were flopping him then.
Right.
He would always play the open side, the other one would always play the tight side or boundary, however you wanted to use it. So you got a little hybridish outside linebacker kid going that way.
Yeah, and that's exactly, you talk about stemming from a 50, your strong safety, your monster, again, if you will, he's opening up his hips, getting a vision point, just like, but he's doing it from a 3 and 6 alignment instead of, tough on the tight. Okay, and then you're asking your off end in a 50 to be the same kind of outside linebacker.
Still an edge guy, but he's in the slant window.
And I played the position in college, and I played strong safety my junior year. In my senior year, they moved me to off end, so now I can blitz, and now I could also defend pass.
Okay, and so let me ask you this: you guys have talked about outside backers, safeties, a little bit of inside backers, and all that stuff is keys, right? You're looking at keys, you're reading hats, down block. But I think the fundamental difference here is specifically probably your DNs and your D tackles are also reading, whereas previously in a 50, usually you're slanting, you're angling, you're gaming your back. So I think
that was a big change coming in, not only the front we set, how we played it, and I can show you some film that the Fitch opener, my first year as a defensive coordinator, kids like, heck with this, and abandon their reads and just trying to play the wing tee on their own, and we got our heads caved in.
Was Fitch part of that process to maybe go to the interior read game with their wing tee, guards taking
that would
you
be
to the
more
play?
of his answer coming in. Did he think that we needed to read? I was a read 40. That's what it was coming in. That's all I know.
Because even when we were running 50, we were never, like you alluded to, we were never sitting in it.
Yeah.
We were either filling or angling or slanting or gaming or stunting, running a smoke or something. And all of that evolved from option adjustment, because again, that was the flavor of the day. So you couldn't just sit and play 50 read, okay? Because now they're giving the quarterback, an option, and it's
predictable. He knew who he was reading, and he was always there.
Exactly.
And I
so you had to go into putting somebody in his face or taking him out and assignment football, but changing it up so it wasn't so predictable and easy to read.
Yeah, and which is really not different than the zone read now is giving him
all that
different reads.
RPO
And,
stuff.
yeah, it's all,
Absolutely.
Reading your end, reading your
Yeah.
tackle, reading your line. I mean, that's what I've experienced through all this, and it was hard going from. They started a game reading your end, and the second half they come out and they're reading your front side linebacker now, and on the giver the read, the Q's just pulling it and hitting it where the Q vague, or our tackles, not block our front side 3 technique, and give the zone and he's flying to the running back, and quarterback's keeping and running
Right.
in the vacated 3 hole, where the 3 technique play. So then you had to start really like, you got to dive, you got to sit on the cue. It still was like option, that RPO out of our reads. Still, you still had to be assignments on. Don't start flying with that outside zone play fake here. It's not your play. You got to play the quarterback pull. And that's we read. And I 40 solid for you. That was practice. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna do it. We're gonna get better at it. You better be all over your key. You better strike your key. You better close down. You better not get trapped. It's just over and over and over again. And we had some kids that bought into and played. I couldn't stunt them faster than they read and filled. That's how good some of those guys got at linebacker and even tackle. Down block, wrong arm, boom, blow up the trap.
Yeah.
Yeah. Just because they got their hands on the guard, they weren't letting him inside. And that's taking me to the trap. Here's the trapper. I'm just giving him a face full because I'm already working down instead of I'm upfield the yard and getting freaking ear hold,
Yeah.
And that I think that's the biggest difference is today.
You can't do. It's hard to do that.
Yeah.
Kids don't want. That's too much work. I got to work really hard.
And your secondary is completely uninvolved as far as run
more
support.
man and yeah.
I mean, that was such a big part in the 70s, 60s, and 70s that you had to have 4 guys back there, not just 2 safeties, but you had to have 4 guys that could run support outside in and inside out.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Beat the stock. I mean, when I coached secondary, I used
build
to
a shell. Build a wall.
I used to
build a shell.
tell the guys I was coaching in the secondary, if you let a wide out stalk you, you don't deserve to come back to the
You
heart.
aren't worth the salt that you were. Yeah.
Well, I think that's.
But they were the wideouts were the DBs.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. That's the evolution of the game, right? Like it's you start in the 50, you got 4 secondary guys that need to run support. Then you're getting your 40 tough, and you talk about walking your outside backer off a little bit. Now you really only got 3 down linemen with their hands on the ground, and you're playing a pass, and it's the game is certainly changed, but the more it changes, the more it kind of stays the same as well.
Yeah, as I went in with that piece of chalk in 1988 with him, and we talked about running a 4, I don't know how many years, but then we were getting a lot of 4 wide and they were we were cover 3. We were 3 deep back there, and they were going 4 vert, and you're trying to middle 2 vert routes. So we had to find something out of what we were doing. And so I think, I don't know if it was Mick's second stint back with us, but brought like quarters coverage to that walked off outside linebacker side, that if you had 2 your way, we called it was a quarters call. We were man ahead of, I didn't know what they call like half zone, half man. Then we were manned up on one side and zoned up on the other side to challenge a 4 vert. Anything that didn't show 4 vert, we played our normal cover 3.
Yeah,
any one of them buried up inside, and so you had to kind of do that. So that was teams I would have attacked the open end way more on the run, because that kid had to be a run supporter still back there at 1 and 6, playing a vertical route while I number 2, and also had to be your edge guy. Your end was over air for the most part.
Mm-hmm.
But they're going to try to reach him or try to get somebody to him, and then combo coverage. I told you I brought to Boardman and we evolved, but that was Ron against Kozar when he says, "Here, we used to do this combo thing," and so we kind of, we had it at Ursuline a little bit because I knew it from being in there in 1980, at Chaney, that he did this combo coverage, and then the evolution of that to where we went to a 3-4 look out of our combo at Boardman. Actually, against Euclid, when my son Michael was a senior, I stood up one of the tackles who was a converted linebacker, so he knew all the reads, and we'd stand and we just gamed out of it. We still were sending our 5 almost every play, 4 for sure, 5 most of the time, but sometimes 6, but out of a 3-4 look, in combo. But still playing man under, 2 deep behind, And,
today, if you can't nickel and dime, if you're not nickel and getting in a nickel or getting in a dime, then you're not going to be in a game.
But that even evolves to where
But and what does that require? That requires 3 stud linemen. I mean,
we needed to be able. When we got a lot of time, got a lot of pressure out of our front 4. I mean.
Well,
guys that you've had are sitting in front of this mic, Keelan Dykes, and you had some, Solly, and we had some, Kenyon Meadows, and them guys all could get after the quarterback. You know what I mean?
Well, when you can rush 4 and get some heat, I mean, you're winning.
Yeah, we were able to do that on a lot of occasions.
And I think, circling back to running the 40 read, played in it at Ursuline, coached it from my specific position, and I would assume for most, you're basically going through your reads constantly. The practice became mundane, boring.
Read, react, and run.
Right.
Read, react, and run.
The game became easy because
once you bought into it. That's what I'm saying. That first Fitch game, kids about halftime says, heck with this. I'm getting trapped, buck sweep, kicked out. I mean, I'm going to just try to go run to the ball. And they're peeking back there next year. They're getting ear holed from left and right. And,
They're ear hole all day long.
But with that, the read, as you talk, it took a commitment, not only on our kids as a staff, and I don't know if everybody was stood there and said, yeah, Pope, we're going to do this. If he didn't buy into, Ron didn't buy into, okay, I think we can do this. This will work.
Yeah.
Our kids are disciplined enough, and we needed a change. I think we needed to do that to beat Fitch. They were going to be, both these guards are going to take us to the football, and if we could be all over it and not get over-penetrate, we got a shot here.
Right.
Know? And we weren't huge at our 3 techniques. We had kids that were strong, tough, quick kids, and they were getting the pool, and they were able to cross face and get over the face of the down block, over the face of the center, on the back block, and the staff bought in, because we went through a few different guys coaching the tackles and the ends up front, and they had to kind of come in, and some had played it, so it was a little easier, and others just bought into it, and it was just drill work, your dailies that you work on at practice. Just, it was a staple, and it was going to take some time, and it took a little while, but then it started to pay dividends, and it's fun. They could call their own game. It's just, for the most part, they were prepared. They knew we were going to run, and I wanted it to be when you got a blitz called, like your ear, bing, you were excited to go because we're reading. Now I got a chance to fire X into the off tackle hole and just cause havoc,
Yeah.
So it made it more enticing for them to do that.
Where did you get one thing that I felt like just kind of watching films and I mean, whenever you'd pull it out, it worked. 41, which double eagle, but you drop your inside backer down to 41, wind your DTs out a little bit. Where did that come from?
That was Ursuline.
Yeah.
That was in short yardage, just to give you something to help with the sneak.
Mm-hmm. You seem to use that a lot against Fitch, though.
Gave him some trouble. What we ended up doing with it, again, evolving, is, okay, if you just went down there, what's the difference whether they're up or down? We're going to block it the same way, or we're going to gap everything. Mm-hmm. So then we started to kick the front a little bit. They were we were like 41 slide tight.
Yes.
So now we were getting almost 2 moles going.
Yeah.
A mole to the weak side, and then you had a mole, a 3, and a 7 to their tight end side with a 2x2 outside linebacker that way too. So we were loaded up to the buck sweep side, the tight wing side then. So that kind of threw the rules off. The front side guard can't pull with the guy in his inside gap, and we were just stemming and doing that late, too. So their rules were screwed up.
You know where that evolves from? The old 7 diamond.
7 diamond. Tell me about the 7 diamond.
So
Tell me about this.
the 7 diamond is an old package of, I think Red used to call it 50 ends go fire rush.
50 ends go fire rush. Okay.
You're in a 50 double eagle.
Okay.
With the
Gotcha.
stack backer.
Yeah.
And you're bringing, it's designed. It was probably designed to stop tight T.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Because we would go 41 stack too. We
Stack
take
your
our
outside
outside
backers.
backer, stack them on our DNs, and have one backer down. So you were in a 5-3 look with a double eagle,
Yeah.
Okay.
and then double fire X on the out. I mean,
Yeah.
because everybody ran the ball 75% of the time.
And when I ran the defense at Chaney, we were predominantly 50, but we ran a lot of straight 53 and split 53.
So split 53, sliding, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. 7 diamond.
7 diamond.
Okay.
Look it up in one of these folklore books.
I'll have to go
Football
to.
before film.
I'll have to
It
go.
might be in an old Bud Wilkinson manual.
They're
Who
probably.
invented the Oklahoma defense?
Yeah, they're probably at the library that you can't take them out because they're historical.
I'm
Yes.
sure.
Probably.
I'm sure.
The research part.
Talk about showing my age.